Bolt fam, what's going on? It's been a little bit since I recorded my last episode, but happy to be back. Fortunately, life has gotten in the way this week, so I apologize for the delay. But we are back at it with another episode of the Electric Edge podcast. My name is Taylor, and I am the host of the Electric Edge podcast. In this episode, we're going to go through my surprises and disappointments as training camp continues up to this point. The Chargers are 2-0 in the preseason. We've seen a lot of players stand out and make their case, make the roster. We've also seen our fair share of disappointments as well during the preseason. I'm going to go through my disappointments and surprises, and let me know in the comments what your disappointments and surprises are so far during the preseason. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the Electric Edge podcast. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. And as always, drop me some love, drop me some comments. Love to read comments from fans, love to interact with any Charger fans, so that's always appreciated. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. So let's start off with the surprises so far. So there's a lot of good progress that's taking place at a training camp, a lot of it from unknown players, so I want to highlight that. But I do want to highlight a veteran presence in training camp so far. I think Keenan Allen coming back to the Chargers has been a massive improvement for that wide receiver core and also a massive blessing. There was talk before he signed what type of player he was going to be, not practicing in OTAs, coming in late to training camp. I think Keenan Allen is going to make the case for wide receiver too. I think Trey Harris and KLSS have struggled a little bit. Trey Harris has had some significant drops in training camp, and we'll talk about that. Quentin Johnson is what Quentin Johnson is. We know that, you can give on a little go route, little crossing route for 5 yards. He can run up the field. But Keenan Allen's going to be that third down presence where he can create space in the middle of the field. Justin Herbert has rapport with him. I think Keenan Allen is making that push, especially during the past week or so in camp, that he can be part of this offense on a down-to-down basis and not be that wide receiver 4 in the mix-in. Ortiz mentioned when he signed him that you can have Ladd and Keenan Allen on the field at the same time. He made the reference to Keenan Allen and DJ Moore kind of being the same type of receiver and how they both did very well last year with the Bears. So I think Keenan Allen is a surprise. Like I said, we didn't really know what he was going to be coming into camp late, not having OTAs, not being in football workouts. But I think he's going to be that safety blanket that Herbert has needed and that he needs to excel in this offense this year. Okay, so let's go on to my second surprise at a training camp. There is a wide receiver battle happening between KLS and Trey Harris. The news this week out of training camp is that Trey Harris has had some pretty bad drops, but he's also had some contested catches that were pretty eye-opening. KLS had a strong camp so far. Didn't do so well in the Saints game, but the game against the Lions, he really shined. So let's look at this article from Bolts of the Blue talking about this competition. So it says, both Harris and Lambert Smith were drafted with hopes of revitalizing a receiver core needing new talent to flourish as they parted ways with both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in 24. Coincidentally, both have since reunited with the Chargers after their one-year departures, though Williams retired on the first day of training camp, ushering in a reunion with Allen. Nonetheless, the Chargers have a competition between two upstarts, though it's not been one to be consumed in the preseason so much as training camp. So right now, KLS has had 24 snaps, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 43 yards and a touchdown. In the game against the Saints, he had 27 snaps, 2 targets, 0 receptions. Trey Harris had 24 snaps, 1 target, and 0 receptions in the Hall of Fame game. And then against the Saints, he had 24 snaps and 0 targets. It says the final 2 preseason games could tilt the favorite in one player's direction. Harris has the benefit of being a second-round selection. Lambert Smith has a production, albeit minimal, from the Hall of Fame game. But if one makes repeated plays down the stretch, it will solidify their early involvement for 2025. So I think the game against the Rams, which is tonight, is going to see who's in the lead for that, I would say, wide receiver 3 spot at this point. KLS has made a strong case. Trey Harris, he has, like this article says, he got drafted in the second round, so he's going to have a little bit more of a push to be higher in that depth chart. But my hope is that bringing in a lot of young talent in the wide receiver core continues to elevate both wide receivers. I've been pleasantly surprised with KLS. I really didn't have him on my radar going into training camp, but he's really surprised me. He's played well. I don't know if the Saints game was kind of a fluke. I mean, Taylor Heinicke did not play well. I think he played almost the first half. So I think that could be affected by KLS's play. He did drop a bad pass from when I saw last week against the Saints, but it remains to be seen. But it's good to have two young rookies battling. It should elevate one another. And we'll see what happens in tonight's game against the Rams and then moving on to the 49ers next week. Okay, the next biggest surprise is these undrafted rookie free agents that the Chargers have brought in that have really, really stepped up and played well. With Ortiz coming in, the Chargers have done an amazing job finding undrafted free agent rookie talent who've performed on the field when it matters most. I mean, look at Terheap Still. He was a 5th-round pick last year, and he's going to be a starter this year. He played super well down the stretch. I think Eric Rodgers or Nico Reed can be that player this year for the Chargers. So let's talk about Eric Rodgers and Nico Reed being the big surprises in that Chargers secondary in the preseason. And this is from Bolts from the Blue again. So it talks about the competition between Rodgers and Reed. Rodgers and Reed have been the two best cornerbacks this preseason by all counts. And yet, they're both contending for a roster spot due to the cornerback room featuring Trahib Still, Dante Jackson, Cam Hart, Ben St. Just, and others. It would take injury or great fortune for both to make the roster, even after their impressive individual performances. After the Chargers' first preseason game, Bolts from the Blues, Michael Peterson had only Reed making the 53. Both are proving to be NFL caliber, but roster gymnastics can only stretch so far. Continue to watch these two contend to make the Chargers roster. I think the one thing going in Reed's favor right now is that Rodgers did get hurt last week. I don't think it's too serious, but I'm not sure the impact of the injury. But to have both these guys on the roster, even if one goes to the practice squad, our secondary had some injuries last year, so keeping these two on the roster can benefit the Chargers down the stretch, especially if they're playing well. You always want to have that depth at that position. I've been pleasantly surprised with both. I thought Rodgers played amazing last week against the Saints. Nico Reed balled out against the Lions. So the Chargers have done an amazing job in their scouting department to find undrafted rookie free agents in that secondary. And it's paying off big time for them. So whatever they're doing, they need to keep doing it, but they also need to translate to other positions on the field. Okay, and my fourth surprise from training camp in the preseason so far is Caleb Murphy. Caleb Murphy has had great games against both the Saints and Lions so far during the preseason. So let's talk about him. He's putting pressure on their pick Kyle Kennard for that number 4 spot on the defense. Okay, so we're back to that article from Bolts from the Blue. Through 2 games, Caleb Murphy has flashed. No play more noteworthy than Murphy forcing a fumble on the opening play in the Hall of Fame game against the Lions, which turned into a 5-play scoring drive finalized with Trey Lance's touchdown pass, the tight end Will Disley on 4th and goal. Murphy sits just outside the top 10 in PFF's pass rush grade among edge rushers this preseason. He's number 11. Meanwhile, Kennard, the Chargers' 4th-round pick and 2024 SEC Defensive Player of the Year, who racked up 15.5 tackles for loss and 11.5 sacks for the Gamecocks, has hardly seen the field. Kennard played 23 snaps in a Hall of Fame game and finished with no tallies. He did not play against New Orleans Saints. So I think as of right now, Caleb Murphy has that number 4 spot locked up. Kennard's not playing. Don't know if he's dealing with possibly an injury or if he just needs more time to develop. I don't see him being that number 4 spot. He may be a special teams player or go to the practice squad, but I think Caleb Murphy, the way he's played so far in both preseason games, he has that spot locked up because he's earned it. We'll see what happens with the Rams game as well as the 49ers game, but as of right now, Caleb Murphy holds that lead. He's been a pleasant surprise. He's earned it. He's played super well. He deserves to be that 4th linebacker, so we'll keep an eye on that battle as well. And some other noteworthy play as well as the preseason so far. I think Raheem Sanders is making his case to be that 3rd running back. He played very well against the Saints last week. He had 10 carries, which turned to 42 rushing yards and a touchdown last week. He had more snaps than Vidal. I think he's making a strong case for being that running back 3, but we also don't know if Najee Harris is going to play either. It'll be interesting to see how that depth chart starts to move as we finish up these preseason games and training camp. But definitely keep an eye on Rocket Sanders. He played well. He's a big back. He's physical. I think he makes a strong case for RB3 this year. Also, I know the big story is Trey Lance. Trey Lance has played fantastic through the preseason. I think I said this on my last episode that I think Trey Lance is going to be QB2 this year. I don't think they're going to continue with Heinicke. I think they may trade Heinicke to a team looking for a backup quarterback. He just hasn't played well. I mean, he hasn't played well in training camp, and he did not play well against the Saints. He looked awful against the Saints. So I think they're going to run with Lance, and then they'll have Jay Ugali as their QB3 or their practice squad QB. I think that's how the depth chart pans out as far as quarterbacks. But like I said, remains to be seen as the preseason finishes up. So let's talk about disappointment so far. So like I mentioned, Trey Harris has been pretty inconsistent at training camp. He hasn't had much production in any of his preseason games so far. As I've read some of the training camp reports, there'll be passes where they just go through his fingers, but then there's contested catches where he makes them. For a second round pick, you need to be more consistent. I mean, I think Ladd sets the standard for that as far as a wide receiver taken in the second round. So I definitely want to see more out of Trey Harris. Herbert needs weapons around him. He's a big body. He played well in college, but he needs to step it up and it needs to translate into the pros. So I'm hoping to see more out of him in today's game against the Rams and then next week in the 49ers, and also seeing some better reports out of training camp with him as well. Like I mentioned just before about the quarterback position. So Taylor Heinicke has been a major disappointment. I mean, the guy won a playoff game and he looked awful against the Saints. Not sure what the issue is, but Trey Lance has stepped up. He's played well. He's given them chances to win. He can use his legs to get out of the pocket. I mean, whatever Harbaugh is doing with Trey Lance, it's working. So I think Trey Lance has definitely made the case for him to be that second quarterback on the roster. And like I mentioned, I think Taylor Heinicke is going to be traded before the season starts, possibly to a team looking for a quarterback. I know the Jets possibly need a backup to Fields because I saw Tyrod Taylor is going to be out for a bit. So it'll be interesting to see what Ortiz does if he wants to get rid of him, what kind of picks he can get back for a, by all accounts, solid veteran quarterback. Another disappointment, Najee Harris. I get it. Accidents happen. But coming to the Chargers, he's never missed a game. He signs with the Chargers, gets in a fireworks accident, don't have a timetable for his return. Now, there are reports that he has been working out on the side at training camp, but he was supposed to be a big part of this run game. I mean, they drafted Hampton in the first round, who's going to probably be their everyday starter at this point. He'll be RB1. But Najee Harris can get you those nitty-gritty yards. And for him to come to the Chargers with his reputation to get hurt before even the season started, it just screams that it's the Chargers' way. I'm pretty disappointed. I get accidents happen, but I thought that he was going to be a big piece of this run game, especially since Harbaugh wants to run. And plus, the stats tell you, I believe there's a stat from last year, when the Chargers rushed over 100 yards a game, they had a winning record. And if they rushed under 100 yards, they had a losing record. It's going to give other players like Vidal and Sanders a chance to step up, which that could possibly be the case because we don't have a timetable on Najee's return yet. So big disappointment in my case. I was looking forward to him being a big part of this offense. He still can be, but as of right now, we haven't seen what he's been able to do in a game or in practice for that matter. And then the fourth point of my disappointments, and this is something I talked about my last episode, was the offensive line issues. Charger fans were well aware going into the offseason that they needed to solidify that offensive line. They signed Mekhi Becton, who, by the way, hasn't practiced since the end of July, so we don't know what's wrong with him there. Yes, you had Alt, Slater. Those are your two anchors on the line. They did not fix this center position. They re-signed Brad Bozeman. And then they were going to have a shuffle between Zion Johnson at guard, maybe Trey Pipkins at guard. They didn't really have a plan for that other part of the interior offensive line. And now, with Slater done for the year, that's shown glaring gaps. You're going to have to move all back to left tackle, which he's fine playing because that's where he played at Notre Dame. Trey Pipkins is going to be your right tackle. Brad Bozeman's going to be your center. You have Becton at right guard and then Zion at left guard. Like I mentioned, there were free agents out there that the Chargers could have signed. They had cap room. You can make the argument, yes, the Chargers didn't want to spend the money on an offensive lineman, But the Houston game last year really showed how bad the offensive line was for Herbert. And now you're kind of back to square one with this offensive line with injuries, and you don't know what you're going to get with your starting five. You know what you're going to get with Alt. You probably know what you're going to get with Becton if he's healthy. We still don't know what's wrong with him. Harbaugh has said that he's just dealing with something, but I don't think he's practiced since the last week of July at this point. Yes, they signed a swing tackle, but he'll be a third string tackle at best. It's been pretty disappointing what the Chargers have done to really create depth on that offensive line. I know Jeremy Saylor's been playing well, but is he really a starter in the NFL? He did start last year in some games. So I think it's going to be a revolving door until the Chargers can figure out who's their best starting five on the line, with the exception of Alt and Becton. But with that being said, we have 2 more preseason games for players to prove themselves, to see what we have on both the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. I am looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Rams game as well as the 49ers game. I may be at the 49ers game, so if you're planning to attend, let me know. I'll be looking for some tailgates to join in on. If any Chargers fans are out in the Bay Area, let me know in the comments below. With that being said, that is my biggest surprises and biggest disappointments during training camp so far. Let me know what your biggest surprise and disappointments are so far during training camp. Drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think. If you agree, you disagree, you have other opinions, I read it all. As always, be sure to like, subscribe to the Electric Edge Podcast. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. And as always, go Chargers and bolt up.